Oh boy, it's that time again. We just got another Prime Warframe, and this time it's Lavos Prime. As you may notice, I caught a bit of a cold, but I wasn't planning on letting that ruin me putting out my Lavos builds, so here I am. Anyhow, Lavos Prime got released alongside the Cedo and Dual Zoran Prime, which both have some unique effects and are pretty interesting weapons themselves. However, in this video I will mainly focus on Lavos and pushing some of the interesting synergies that I have cooked up. The builds featured today will be relatively off meta, yet still very powerful, so use these ones if you want to spice things up. Since this will not be a full in-depth guide to Lavos, I will keep the ability descriptions as short as I can. The main thing you need to know about Lavos is that his abilities do not consume any energy, making him the second Warframe to not have any energy pool like Hildrin. Instead, they have a cooldown timer. This will also include any helmet ability that you put on Lavos. Lavos will also be able to imbue his abilities with extra elemental damage by hold casting your 1, 2, 3 and 4 for toxin, cold, electricity and heat damage respectively. You can then also combine these elementals to give rise to the combined forms, which are viral, magnetic, blast, radiation, gas and corrosive. On Lavos, ability duration and ability efficiency will also work differently, as efficiency will increase the ability cooldown reduction from his third ability and his first ability if you use the Augment mod, and duration will increase the duration of the status effects that Lavos will be able to put out. His passive allows Lavos for full status and knockdown immunity, meaning you won't need Prime Sure-Footed as long as you have at least one energy or universal orb coming in every 10 seconds. Then for the abilities, his first ability is called Ophidian Bite, which will throw out a bunch of toxin damage that will also heal Lavos for the damage dealt. This ability also has an augment mod called Swift Bite, which you can use to reduce the cooldown timers of your other abilities as long as you hit at least 4 enemies. And using this augment will also increase the range of this ability by 30%. With his second ability, Vial Rush, you can ice skate around and drop a bunch of vials on enemies that will deal cold damage over time, eventually freezing them in place. This ability is nice to combine with Primary Frostbite or Arcane Ice Storm. His third ability, Transmutation Probe, is in my opinion his most interesting ability. This ability will send out a sort of drone that within a certain range will convert any health and energy orbs into so-called universal orbs. And besides this, ammo drops will be converted into universal ammo drops. It will also deal electricity damage to enemies it hits, and every enemy hit will reduce the cooldown timers of other abilities. The universal ammo is great for weapons with small ammo pools like the Kuva Brahma or the Kuva Zar. And the universal orbs will be able to trigger any mods or arcanes that get triggered by either energy or health pickups, meaning that they can, for instance, trigger Arcane Blessing and Arcane Eruption simultaneously. Then finally, his fourth ability, Catalyze, can be used to nuke rooms with Le Funny imbued blast or gas damage, although the build today will focus more on the blast damage interaction. Catalyze will deal heat damage, and the damage dealt by this ability will be doubled for each status type that is present on an enemy, excluding impact, puncture and slash, and some of the hidden statuses. The damage is calculated by the formula that I will pop up on screen right now as well. His final augment that is currently available is Valence Formation, which will add the latest imbued elemental damage type cast on your ability to your weapons. These will be buffed by 200% of said elemental damage type and will always proc its status effect. I do have to note that this is currently bugged and will not increase damage over time for some of the elemental types. However, this should be fixed fairly soon. Valence Formation can be great to force proc electricity on melee influence builds, for which I will use it today. However, the damage synergies will reach much further than this, and you can likely come up with some interesting concoctions on your own as well. Both of the builds that I will show today will only use a single Forma, however they do rely on the use of Archon Shards for them to work optimally. For the Archon Shards, I use 1 for casting speed, 1 for health orb effectiveness, which also applies to the health of universal orbs. Then I use 2 shards for increased max life on blast damage kills, and finally I use 1 ability strength shard. For the companions, I liked using the Lavos Prime for grouping enemies using Cordon. However, Sentinels lack the ability to equip retriever mods, so you'll lose out on some extra loot, which in my opinion feels pretty bad. For the Beast companions, which are able to use the retriever mods, I liked using my bread and butter Panzer Vulpavila for viral priming with viral quills and armor stripping with Vicious Bond. This was also a very good choice to litter the ground with universal orbs, as you can combine it with the Synth Deconstruct mod, which will cause practically every enemy tagged by viral quills to drop a health orb, which you can then convert with your third ability. And finally, for the beast companions, I would recommend using the Pharaoh Predacite in combination with the Mecha mod set and the Anabolic Pollination mod. The Mecha set will be featured in the second Lavos build, and Anabolic Pollination is amazing to add 100% toxin damage to your weapons, increasing your total damage over time output, synergizing with the Mecha set. The first Lavos build that I want to show is focused on nuking rooms with his fourth ability, Catalyze. To optimally do this, I imbue either my first or second ability with Vial, after which I cast it to prime enemies. Then I imbue Catalyze with Blast for the fireworks to start. This easily does damage into the millions and is able to wipe entire packs of enemies if they are close enough, which is why Nautilus with its Cordon mod is one of the considerations for the companions. This is mostly an ability cast build, so your weapons will matter a little bit less, but to massively scale the damage of Catalyze, I recommend using Lavos' signature Pseudo Prime, as this can easily apply up to 9 different elemental types. For the Pseudo Prime, I use this build using a full rainbow of status types that will spread among enemies when you are using the Alt Fire. For the secondary, I preferred using the Grimoire with the Netra Invocation and the Kra Canticle for additional universal orbs and the ability efficiency for easier casting of abilities. I also have secondary Fortifier on here to generate me a bunch of Overguard for even more survivability. For the Lavos build, I use the Augment mod for his first ability to keep cooldowns as low as possible. I also use Health Conversion in combination with Adaptation for general health tanking on low to medium level content, and I put Archon Continuity on for additional corrosive procs when casting his first ability. To make sure I deal maximum damage with Catalyze, I use Precision Intensify, and the remaining mods are for ability range. I also have Streamline on this build, which functions more as a flex slot, so you can use whatever you want there. For the Arcanes, I went with Mold Augmented and Arcane Impetus. Combined, both will add 120% extra ability strength, as you can get Impetus up to 10 stacks, casting all of the elemental damage types. This will also give you 30% ability efficiency, which together with Streamline gets you to 60% ability efficiency, which is very close to the 75% cap. The second build focuses fully on universal orbs and uses specific weapon combinations to push this to the limit. On the primary, I used the Tenet Glaxion with the Photon Overcharge mod to generate additional orbs that can be converted. I also mod this one for Blast status to proc the Archon Shards, and I use primary Dexterity for melee combo duration, as I will swap to full melee once the health pool is built up. For the secondary, I use the same Grimoire build as shown before, so nothing new there. And then for the melee, I use the Hate Incarnal, which I mod for Viral and Heat, and I use the Burning Hate Augment for a massive multiplicative increase to status damage over time whenever enemies with heat procs are hit. I then use Melee Influence, which I can trigger with the electricity damage via Valence Formation, and this augment, as said before, will guarantee status procs, which causes optimal spreading of status effects with Melee Influence. In total, the Hate will be able to spread Toxin from Anabolic Pollination, Heat and Viral from the modding, and Electricity from Valence Formation, which can then all be spread with Melee Influence and can also be spread by the Mecha set. On the Lavos build, I subsume over his fourth ability for Fractured Blast, which will help generate even more universal orbs and is able to recoup some of the lost stacks from Arcane Impetus. With this build, you'll be able to reach a total of 8 stacks, which is 2 stacks lower than on the first build, but it's still pretty good as you can also get the ability efficiency. As I said, I like to combine this build with the Mecha set bonus and the Pharaoh Predacite, which I have shown earlier. The Mecha set, together with Burning Hate, will go absolutely nutso, especially once it begins to spread massive status damage. Mecha Pulse is also very good on Lavos, as he has a relatively high amount of base armor, and I have seen this mod buff my armor by up to 2340%, which is totally insane. On this build, I also chose to run Arcane Eruption, but for more of a meme, as the universal orbs will be littered everywhere and will continuously knock down enemies on their butt, effectively disabling their damage output as long as they don't have Overguard. This build worked surprisingly well and is a combination which I have not seen anyone else run as far as I know. So maybe try it out yourself and let me know what you think. Then to close off the video, I want to do something different, which is showing the 4 different fashions I did for Lavos. For all of the fashions, I will show the colors that I used and the attachments that I used on screen. However, do note that I have purchased the accessories bundle, so you may not have the same armor pieces and Sayandana available to you. The first fashion is fire themed, which I think turned out pretty nicely. I went with a fiery orange in his vials, which looks really cool in my opinion. His accessories also pair very nicely with the rest of his frame and look a lot better than I actually expected them to look. Then for the second fashion, this one is electric themed. So I went more with a neon purple while keeping the base colors kind of neutral. I went with a light gold for the metallic look, which I think looks pretty good. Then for the third fashion, This one is Toxin inspired, which again, I went with the more neutral brown coloring, and then I used neon greens from the Rhino heirloom palette. And finally, I have the cold themed fashion as well, where I used the Vengeful Chill ephemera, and I went with a more yellowy orangey gold, which looks really nice with the bright blue in my opinion. So yeah, that's my take on Lavos Prime. Let me know what you think and what you ended up settling for on this build. And let me know if you have been enjoying the Cedo and the Zoran Prime as well. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more Warframe content. And leave a like if you want to help out in ye old YouTube algorithm. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you in the next one when I have hopefully recovered from my cold. Bye.
As always, thanks to all channel members for supporting the channel. If you are looking to become a member, please find the join button below the video.